Do you ever wonder what people would do for eternal youth? In our age of injectables, stem cell serums, and so called vampire facials, it seems the answer is almost anything. But this obsession isn't new. For centuries, the figure of the vampire has embodied humanity's deepest beauty fantasy: youth without end, flawless skin, and the seductive promise of immortality. The catch? It always comes with a blood price. The vampire myth is one of the most enduring in Western imagination. At its core, it's not just about monsters, it's about beauty, desire, and the fear of decay. In The Vampire, A New History, historian Nick Groom writes, "The vampire is both irresistible and repulsive, embodying an immortal beauty that conceals its parasitic hunger." From 18th century folktales in Eastern Europe to Bram Stoker's Dracula, vampires have always been described as both alluring and horrifying. Pale, ageless skin became their signature. That look wasn't just a Gothic flourish, it echoed a real historical ideal. In European aristocracy, pale complexions symbolized wealth and leisure. If you didn't work under the sun, your skin was porcelain. Add to that the faint blush of blood beneath the skin, and you had the perfect canvas of beauty and privilege. But vampirism takes that ideal to an extreme. To stay eternally youthful, vampires must consume the vitality of others. This isn't just a metaphor invented in 18th century literature. It has deep cultural echoes. Across civilizations, blood and vitality have been tied to life itself. In ancient Greece, the concept of pneuma, the breath or spirit, was believed to animate the body. Blood was thought to carry this vital force. Hippocratic writings suggested that loss of blood weakened not only the body, but the very essence of life. In Chinese philosophy, qi was understood as the vital energy circulating through the body. To drain someone of their qi was to rob them of life, vigor, and beauty. Stories of spirits and hungry ghosts in Chinese folklore describe entities that prey on the living, sapping their qi to sustain themselves. In Indian traditions, the Sanskrit concept of ojus represented the subtle essence of vitality and beauty. It was believed to give the skin its radiance and the body its resilience. Wasting away, whether through illness or through the influence of malign forces, was seen as a depletion of ojus. Even in medieval Europe, theologians and physicians considered blood the seat of the soul and the primary humor of vitality. To lose too much was not only a medical crisis, but a spiritual danger. The Gothic vampire becomes the ultimate thief of vitality. Dracula drains his victims of blood, but symbolically he robs them of youth, beauty, and spirit. As one character in Polidori's The Vampire described Lord Ruthven, it was evident that he exhausted the frames of those beautiful females who became his prey. So when we look at the pale, unaging face of the vampire, it isn't just supernatural horror. It's the culmination of centuries of belief that our life force, our very glow, can be stolen. And listen to how Stoker presents that paradox of beauty and death. There lay a tall old man, clean-shaven save for a long white mustache, and clad in black from head to foot. His face was strong, a very strong, aquiline, with high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, with lofty domed forehead, and hair growing scantily round the temples, but profusely elsewhere. The mouth, so far as I could see it under the heavy mustache, was fixed and rather cruel-looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. Dracula's physicality hovers between regal and grotesque. He is beautiful, but it's the beauty of embalmed flesh, a mask stretched over decay, eternal youth purchased by draining the life of others. No figure looms larger in the lore of blood and beauty than Countess Elizabeth Bathory, the so-called Blood Countess of Hungary. Accused of torturing and killing hundreds of young women in the early 1600s, legend claims she bathed in virgin's blood to preserve her youth. While historians today argue this story was likely exaggerated or even fabricated as a political smear, the myth stuck. Bathory became the ultimate Gothic cautionary tale, beauty bought at a grotesque, murderous cost. During her trial, witnesses recalled her own terrifying words. One servant testified. She often said she bathed in the blood of virgins to retain her beauty and youth. Whether or not Bathory truly uttered those words, they encapsulated the horror that would forever cling to her name. But Bathory wasn't alone in linking blood to health and beauty. For centuries, bloodletting was one of the most common medical practices. The idea was simple: drain the bad blood, purify the body, and restore balance. As grotesque as it sounds, bloodletting was prescribed for everything from fevers to acne. French physician Pierre Louis, writing in the 1830s, warned that excessive bloodletting was dangerous, yet he admitted patients and doctors alike clung to it because of its seductive logic. This association of blood with vitality and healing goes back even further, to ancient Rome. Pliny the Elder recorded that epileptics would drink the warm blood of slain gladiators in hopes of absorbing their strength and curing disease. Some accounts describe desperate relatives rushing into the arena after a fighter's death, collecting blood while it was still fresh. Roman satirist Juvenal even mocked the practice, suggesting it was well known enough to be ridiculed. As historian Richard Sugg observes in Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampyres, from gladiator blood in the Colosseum to powdered skull in the apothecary's jar, European culture repeatedly turned to the dead for life. The logic was the same. Blood was the essence of vitality, and consuming it meant sharing in another's life force. In Aztec culture, this idea of blood as vitality was scaled up to the cosmic. Human sacrifice was not seen as mere brutality, but as essential nourishment for the gods. Blood was the sacred fuel of the sun, believed to keep the universe alive. Without offerings, the world itself could wither. It wasn't beauty in the cosmetic sense, but it was a belief in blood as the ultimate source of renewal, binding human vitality to cosmic survival. By the Renaissance, these ideas took on a new intellectual sheen. The philosopher and alchemist Marsilio Ficino speculated that the blood of the young could revitalize the old, transferring vitality directly. Though he likely never acted on these musings, the suggestion reveals how deeply the fantasy of rejuvenation through blood ran in European thought. And in the early modern period, these beliefs turned into actual medical practice. Apothecaries sold powdered mummy, scraped from Egyptian corpses and mixed into tinctures. Ground human skull was prescribed for epilepsy. Even human fat was rendered into salves. It sounds ghoulish now, but these remedies were consumed by nobles and commoners alike. The dead were literally commodified as medicine. It's no surprise that literature absorbed these macabre ideas. John Polidori's The Vampyre describes Lord Ruthven feeding on innocent young women who are left rapidly withering away after his embrace. The image of youthful vitality drained to preserve aristocratic beauty mirrored long-standing fears that the old and powerful might literally consume the young to sustain themselves. Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla made the act more intimate, even erotic, binding beauty, seduction, and horror into one. Fast forward to today, and blood is still very much in the beauty conversation. Enter the infamous vampire facial. Made popular in the 2010s, this cosmetic procedure involves drawing a patient's blood, spinning it down to extract platelet-rich plasma, and then injecting or microneedling it back into the skin. Supposedly, the plasma stimulates collagen production, giving you that youthful glow. Dermatologist Doris Day has said, "There's some science behind plasma therapy, but it's often oversold as a miracle. The name alone, vampire facial, taps into our fascination with blood as life force." Of course, not all modern practices are as Instagram friendly. In 2019, 2 New Mexico spas were shut down after unsafe vampire facials potentially exposed clients to HIV. Once again, the pursuit of beauty through blood proved dangerous. Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla captured this danger in one unforgettable scene. The young Laura recalls, "Sometimes, after an hour of apathy, my strange and beautiful companion would suddenly, almost fiercely, clasp me in her trembling arms and bury her face in my neck. Her soft lips ran along my cheek in kisses, and she would draw me to her heart with murmuring caresses that absolutely thrilled me. In these mysterious moods, I did not like her. I experienced a strange, tumultuous excitement that was pleasurable, ever and anon, mingled with a vague sense of fear and disgust." Blood, beauty, seduction, fear, it's all bound together. And whether in a Roman amphitheater, an Aztec temple, a Renaissance study, a 17th century castle, or a glossy modern clinic, the message is the same. People have always believed that in blood lies the secret to youth. What makes the vampire so captivating is that it speaks directly to our terror of mortality. The skin sags, the body weakens, time leaves its mark. But in vampire lore, all that is frozen. They don't wrinkle, they don't gray, they don't age. As scholar Nina Auerbach wrote in Our Vampires Ourselves, the vampire survives as a cultural obsession because it reflects our own anxieties about change, decay, and loss of beauty. But when humans chase immortality, the results often veer into the grotesque. We've seen lead-based cosmetics in the Renaissance, mercury skin lighteners in the 19th century, and dangerous injections in modern spas. The vampire is a mirror held up to our desperation, reminding us that the desire for eternal youth can drain us dry, literally and figuratively. And beyond the physical risks, there's the psychological toll. The constant pressure to look young fuels industries that thrive on fear. Every wrinkle becomes a threat, every gray hair a crisis. Vampires may haunt Gothic castles, but their shadow looms just as large in Sephora aisles and luxury clinics. Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, Chapter 4, captures that duality of beauty and menace. Laura describes her mysterious companion. "She was beautiful as ever, more beautiful, I thought, than ever, and looking at her eyes, I fancied there was a languid luster in them, such as I never saw before. It made me uneasy. Immortal beauty is mesmerizing, but it unsettles precisely because it doesn't change." This theme of beauty preserved at terrible cost isn't limited to vampire lore. Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, Chapter 2, gives us a mortal man who makes a Faustian bargain for eternal youth. As Lord Henry tells Dorian, "You have only a few years in which to live really, perfectly, and fully. When your youth goes, your beauty will go with it. Live, live the wonderful life that is in you. Let nothing be lost upon you." Dorian's wish is granted. His portrait ages and decays while he remains flawless. But as his soul corrupts, his perfect exterior becomes a hollow shell. Wilde's novel and vampire fiction alike reveal the same truth. Eternal youth may preserve beauty, but it rots everything beneath. Jean Polidori's The Vampire describes Lord Ruthven. There was a certain deadly hue upon his face, which never gained a warmer tint, either from the blush of modesty or from the strong emotion of passion, though its form and outline were beautiful. That's the essence of vampiric beauty, perfect but cold, a beauty that doesn't live, only persists. Placed side by side, Wilde and Polidori illuminate two sides of the same horror. Dorian Gray's beauty festers from within, corrupted by his sins. Ruthven's beauty is flawless, but inert, as if death itself has sculpted it. Together, they expose the paradox at the heart of the quest for eternal youth. Beauty without aging becomes either grotesque or lifeless. And in that persistence lies the horror. Philosopher Susan Nyman once remarked, "Our horror of aging is really our horror of time. To freeze time is to freeze life itself." The vampire embodies this paradox. It cheats death, but in doing so, it forfeits true vitality. Eternal youth without growth, without warmth, without mortality, isn't life at all, but an endless, hungry stasis. So here we are, centuries after Bathory, living in an age of vampire facials, stem cell serums, and billion-dollar longevity startups. And the obsessions are only getting stranger. Silicon Valley elites have turned the vampire metaphor into biotech. In recent years, companies like Ambrosia offered plasma transfusions from young donors to older clients. Yes, actual young blood infusions as an anti-aging treatment. Journalist Antonio Regalado, reporting for MIT Technology Review in 2019, revealed that people were paying thousands of dollars for the chance to siphon youth from the young. The FDA stepped in, warning there was no proven clinical benefit. But the very fact it existed tells you how deep the hunger runs. And it's not just transfusions. Longevity labs are testing everything from senolytic drugs to cellular reprogramming. Billionaires like Brian Johnson make headlines with their reverse aging regimens, spending millions on blood tests, supplements, and extreme diets, all in the pursuit of a body that doesn't age. As cultural critic Jill Lepore quipped in The New Yorker, the cult of longevity is just the cult of youth with a laboratory attached. But you don't need a billionaire's bank account to see vampirism in today's beauty culture. You only need a smartphone. Social media filters blur wrinkles, plump lips, and smooth complexions with a tap. The result? A generation raised to see their real faces as insufficient, craving the perfected, ageless skin of a digital avatar. Psychologists now talk about Snapchat dysmorphia, where patients request surgeries to look like their filtered selfies. On the clinic side, the procedures multiply. Botox to freeze expressions, fillers to restore lost volume, laser resurfacing, chemical peels, radiofrequency tightening, thread lifts. The menu of modern anti-aging grows longer every year. Global data reports that the global anti-aging skincare market alone is expected to reach nearly $90 billion by 2027. And it's not just procedures, it's the language of the products themselves. Walk into Sephora or scroll through Instagram and you'll see promises like defy time, ageless skin, timeless beauty, erase the years, turn back the clock. It's marketing language that could just as easily come from the mouth of Dracula. Author Aubrey de Grey, one of the leading figures in longevity research, once declared, "The first person to live to 1,000 is probably alive today." Whether you find that hopeful or horrifying, it echoes the same ancient dream, to conquer aging no matter the cost. What's chilling is how directly this echoes vampire lore. In Dracula, chapter 21, when Van Helsing describes Lucy Westenra's transformation, he says, "She is not merely as she was, but far, far more radiantly beautiful than ever. And the lips are red, nay, redder than before, and the cheeks have the glow of health." The cost of that radiance? Lucy's soul. In Gothic fiction, beauty that defies time always demands a price, something Silicon Valley seems willing to ignore. Oscar Wilde warned of the same bargain in The Picture of Dorian Gray, Chapter 8. After Dorian's sins begin to mar his portrait, he reflects. Eternal youth, infinite passion, pleasures subtle and secret, wild joys and wilder sins. He was to have all these things. The portrait was to bear the burden of his shame. That was all. Like the vampire, Dorian gains immortality of beauty by shifting the cost elsewhere. His portrait absorbs the ruin. Today's longevity billionaires may not keep cursed paintings in their mansions, but the question lingers, who or what pays the price for their eternal youth experiments? The vampire remains our most enduring beauty metaphor because it strips the fantasy down to its essence. Eternal youth bought with blood. From Bathory's castle to biotech clinics in California, the fantasy hasn't changed, only the tools. And while you and I might not be ready to drain our neighbors to stay wrinkle-free, the question remains, how far would you go? Would you sacrifice your health, your money, even your morality, just to keep your reflection looking ageless? We followed the trail of blood from Bathory's castle to the vampire facial, from Roman arenas to Instagram filters, and what becomes clear is this. The vampire has always been the ultimate beauty icon, not because it terrifies us, but because it tempts us. Eternal youth, flawless skin, desire that never fades. It's everything we're told to crave. But beauty without change is a kind of death, isn't it? A frozen mask, smooth as marble, untouched by time. Still, how many of us would risk it, our money, our health, maybe even our morality, for just one taste of that promise? Join me on Friday for our final episode, as we'll sink deeper into the vampire's embrace. From Anne Rice's tragic immortals to the lust-soaked nights of True Blood, to the glittering abstinence of Twilight, we'll ask why we can't stop loving creatures who should repulse us. Because in the end, the vampire isn't just about blood. It's about beauty, desire, and the thrill of surrendering to what we know is dangerous. And maybe that's the most human craving of all.